Hello, everyone. This is Chris Horniak once again. I'll be leading this call. I also have Carrie back with me, so she'll be
Hello.
sitting in. And yeah, the two of us are going to guide you through a bunch of SEO strategy stuff today, specifically how to develop a coherent strategy for your blog and your website in general. Though we will be focusing more on blog stuff, as that is the primary focus of our SEO strategy. Though almost everything that I say and that I'm going to say, I will also kind of point out other places where it'll work on your website, not just your blog. But let's begin. So, SEO strategy. We talked a lot in the first lesson about keywords, right? So we went through finding keywords, exactly what you need to do to figure out, okay, these are the keywords for me, that kind of stuff. But keywords are just a piece of the puzzle. Keywords are just really the first step towards building out content. Because when you're trying to find keywords, you're really not just finding keywords, right? You're actually going out there to try and find topic ideas. You're not just looking for, hey, you know, we have these 5 keywords that are really good. Let me just randomly throw them into a blog post or randomly throw them on the services page on my website and like everything's going to be great. It doesn't work that way. You actually have to consider what these keywords do, right? And so that's the
I,
whole point.
I think that it's really important to also talk about search intent at this point
Mhm,
as well.
mhm,
And Chris, maybe that's where you were headed.
mhm.
But I just wanted to jump in and make sure that as you're looking at keywords, you're looking at search intent. And so if your keyword is roof repair, uh, maybe you want to be looking at a larger set of keywords or a larger topic about when to know when it's time to repair your roof, or how do I know when, maybe like 9 signs, your roof needs to be replaced or patched, or you can go any different iteration and base different pieces of content around that as well. But get in the headspace of your potential customers and clients. What would they be searching for when they're looking for your product? What question would they have that your product or service solves, or that you can answer for them? Uh, and so search intent is very important. And Chris, I'll let you get back to it.
Yeah, actually, just using your example of roof repair, I know we mentioned answer the public last time. I just got to wait for the data to load. There we go. I know we mentioned this the last time, but how answer the public essentially works is that it looks out there at what people are actually searching for and then generates a bunch of things. And so using that example of roof repair, right, and answer the public, you can kind of get an example of what people are actually searching for with that keyword. So you can figure out what content you need to include or what content you need to be writing. Um, and you should double check to make sure that some of these are really good, because most of these will pop up as long tail keywords. And some of them don't get a lot of search traffic, or they only get a little search traffic in the past. But it is a good way to brainstorm just, what exactly is it that you need to be targeting. Additionally, when we're talking about keyword intent, one of the things it's important to talk about is that when you're thinking about the content that you're writing, you have to think about it as sort of not just like a singular piece of content. When we talk about SEO strategy, we're not just talking about like, okay, this random blog post, right? Like if we look on TCF's website, right, and we go on over to our blog, if we look at any one of our blog posts on our website, none of these blog posts by themselves we don't write anything in a vacuum, right? So this blog post, we weren't just like, oh, we're going to write about content marketing today. When we sat down to write this blog post, this was planned out months ago. So 6 months ago, we sat down and said, all right, we want to write X number of blog posts every month for the next couple of months. How are we going to go about doing that? And there's a couple steps there that help you figure out what you're going to write, how you're going to do it, and how it's going to relate to all the other content that you're writing. So when you're sitting down, right, once you've done your keyword research, once you have your big spreadsheet full of keywords that you're looking at, and you can kind of pick through those and say, okay, here's the keywords that we absolutely want to target. Your next step is then figuring out, all right, cool. So like, what do we actually want to write about? And how do we want to write about it? And in what order do we want to write these things in, right?
And you want to target the keywords with content that's going to deliver the highest ROI. The reason why we pushed how much does content marketing cost to the front of our editorial calendar is because that's a high conversion search. If somebody's searching for the cost of content marketing and they find this post, it's because they've got some sort of budget, but they don't know if it's enough, or they don't know how far it'll go, and they're looking for some content that will answer that question, which this blog post does. And so again, it's about serving the potential clients and customers that are looking for information that then you get to position yourself as an expert and your product or service as the solution to their problem at a price point that they can afford in this case. And so as you're looking at your keywords that you've researched, you've got a finite amount of time. It takes a long time to write a long form piece of content. And as we've discussed, you want to go long form with your content, 2,000 words. If you're a slow writer, that's going to take you all day. Even if you're a fast writer, it's going to take you 4 hours, and you're going to have to do some research work on top of that. And we're all busy, right? So as you're allocating your time, or as you're allocating your staff resources, front load the topics and keywords that are going to get you the highest conversion, because what you should be doing is chasing after where the ROI is so that you can maximize the results of your time spend as early on as possible. If you're going for more generic keywords that aren't so conversion focused, sure, you can generate search traffic, and sure, some of that might convert, but not as much as if you started with the high conversion keywords and topics. So Chris, I'll let you jump back in now.
Yeah, one of the things that I feel like it's really important to mention is that when you're like, it's so easy. If you read anything about SEO, you'll read like 1,000,000,001 blog posts that all talk about like, oh, rank for keywords, and just like it's all about keywords, and just pick them and rank for them, and you're going to generate all this traffic, and you will, right? Like if you just go through keyword research, you find the juiciest keywords that look like, oh, these are the best keywords that I could target as far as like ease of targeting them and ease of ranking for them. You can just jump on those and you'll get all this traffic. But like, is the traffic meaningful? And that's like, that's always a question you have to ask yourself. I believe I mentioned this example the last time, but like we have some pages on our website that generate a ton of traffic. We have like a lot of, I think it's like, women in business quotes, and like the best quotes about social media, and those posts rank really, really well. They rank #1 for their respective keywords, and they generate a ton of traffic. But like that traffic isn't super useful to us. We're glad we wrote the post. We wanted to write the post. We just wanted to get it up there just because we thought it was interesting. But there was no intent on our part to really want to make those things convert. Whereas something like this, for example, generates a little bit less traffic on our end, but it converts at such a much higher rate. And so you have to kind of think to yourself what your goals are, right? And likewise,
and also that's something that you want to consider when evaluating your keywords as a whole. So if there's a keyword that you can rank for, you feel good about, you can educate your target audience about said subject, and it gets a lot of search traffic, right? But it's not optimized for conversion. I would rather focus on the one that gets maybe 50 searches. I'd go for a keyword that gets 20 searches if I think it's going to convert really well, because over time, that targeted traffic will bring me money. And this is a subject for a different webinar, but one way that we do monetize and that you can monetize any of that traffic that your site brings in that isn't highly optimized. So for example, we rank #1 for social media stats. That doesn't convert very well, as you might imagine. However, you might have seen it on Chris's screen. We have a pop-up that comes up that invites you to subscribe to our email list. And you guys are all on that email list. And you can monetize that email list moving forward. You paid for this webinar training. That's great. Thank you. I'm very excited about that. But it's something that you can replicate too, because you should view all of your website traffic as just potential dollar signs entering into a very large funnel, and certainly not all of that is going to convert. There's a lot in that process. But as you start to turn your website into a traffic generating machine, even if a small percentage of that converts to leads, converts to actual customers or clients, you can still make some use of the traffic that comes your way. And you can also put Facebook pixels on those posts and then retarget those people on Facebook ads. And then maybe the Facebook ad campaign is going to convert that traffic because they'll already remember who you are. They'll have, hopefully gotten some sort of value from your content. And then when you visit them on Facebook, they might be more likely to convert there. So it's worth mentioning that as part of a holistic SEO strategy, as you start to gain traction, there are ways that you can monetize less targeted traffic that comes your way. But I think that it's really important from the get-go to target that the traffic that's most likely to convert. And I would recommend that you start with that as the foundation of your strategy. Which topics, which blog posts are going to help people convert? And then write that content. And as you start to build that content library out, then you can pepper in some of the keywords and subjects that have a very high search volume and ease of ranking, but maybe not as targeted for conversion. And as they say, and we say this a lot around the Content Factory, but a rising tide does lift all boats. So as you start generating more of that less conversion optimized but still relevant traffic, the rest of your posts are going to rise as well. So I don't want you to completely ignore the keywords that maybe aren't as likely to convert immediately, but definitely don't focus on them early on.
Yeah, I just I had to get it to pop up, but this is just the pop-up that comes up whenever you're on our site for a little bit or on one of our pages for a little bit. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up a little really quickly. One of the other things, talking about traffic, and I think I believe that we mentioned this a little bit earlier on, but I can't. So this is one of those recursive things about SEO that can be really annoying, but it's like something that you always have to keep in the back of your mind. So when all the big SEO companies release at the end of the year, or sometimes usually at the beginning of the year, they report for the previous year as far as what are the ranking factors that matter the most, right? And these things come out all the time, and they always are really interesting to look at. But the thing that's always pretty consistent is that the websites with the most traffic are the ones that rank the highest. And that seems like really obvious, but it's one of those things that confuses a lot of people. And not to go too off the beaten path here, but one of the things that one of the comments that I've teaching these now for a little bit that I always get is when we tell people about strategy and everything, they'll go, well, what about this web page that, doesn't look super great? It's not following these best practices and it's still ranking #1 for this keyword. Well, there's kind of a momentum thing going on with a lot of websites where once you get a lot of traffic on a page, it's really hard to move it, right? Because traffic is essentially, we'll keep it floating. long after almost everything else isn't relevant anymore. And where this kind of comes in is on a lot of those pages that we rank really high for, going here, like you can see like businesswomen quotes, right? Like this particular page is pretty old. We haven't updated in a while. We're not really super interested in keeping it ranking. Whereas, you know, a lot of the other pages that are up here, like our press release distribution page, you know, we have a page that targets website content writer as a keyword. All these, like we go back to these consistently over time, and we'll talk about this in a future lesson. But we go back and we edit these and we make sure that they stay number one, right? We make sure that they keep ranking. We fight for those keywords, whereas these, the other ones, we don't really fight for, but there's just so much traffic there that you just keep that momentum going. But in addition to using that traffic for conversion purposes, and you know the fact that, oh, there's just traffic going to your website in general, and that's good. What you also can use, and this is really important, and it's where the content strategy comes in, is if you're creating a content strategy right now, then 6 months down the line, your website is going to look a lot more coherent. So what I mean by that is if I look in this, how much does content marketing cost post, and I'm looking down at a lot of these links, what I'm going to find, and I mean, it's going to take me a little bit to find them. Well, there's one. Let's see if I can find another one. There's another one, right? We can find a lot of internal links in this post that link to other blog posts that aren't just there because like, oh, we wanted to link to a random blog post because we wanted the traffic. They're there because we know from a strategy point of view that someone that lands on this page is probably interested in some of these other things too. And so when they land here, they're going to click through. And closer to the end of this lesson, I'm going to talk about linking, internal linking strategies and silo strategy. But so I'm going to just put a pin in that for now. But the whole idea is that when you're just creating a content strategy, you don't even just want to think about like, okay, these are the most valuable keywords. You want to think about, okay, so these keywords are the most valuable, and these other keywords like kind of fit in under that keyword. So like a great example for this is, you know, we have like this, how much does content marketing cost? And if I go back, not that long ago, you know, let's see if I can find it. We have this post, how to write a successful blog post and measure blog ROI. So essentially, like we had the strategy that we were going on here is we found a niche that was kind of missing a little bit on our website. We wanted a little bit more content or cost-based and ROI-based articles on our website because we wanted to target people. We wanted to target people that were interested in squeezing in as much as they possibly could for their money, because a lot of our clients have to be smaller businesses and startups where they're looking at a budget and they want to get the most bang for their buck. So we wanted to target those specific people. So then what we did is we set out, we spent, you know, a little while building up a list of keywords that we thought, okay, these keywords are the perfect keywords for targeting this group of people. And then the next step that we jumped to was, okay, cool. So here's the keywords that we want to target. What are the actual blog posts? What are the actual topics that are going to hit for those sorts of people, right? And that isn't just a matter of brainstorming, right? There's a couple tools that we use to figure out how to actually do that. So the first one, I brought this up before, Answer the Public is kind of the first thing that I personally go to. And this is just my personal preference, right? I like to go here, throw in the keyword and just see just quickly, what are people actually searching for? So if I, you know, looking at one of these posts, right, assuming that the keyword is small business SEO, I would just go in here and type small business SEO and just see what pops up, and then just sit here and think, okay, cool. What are people actually looking for? What are people searching for, right? Next place that I would go, I'd go over to BuzzSumo. Now, BuzzSumo, if you're not aware, is a tool that is really, really useful if you're doing any kind of social media research or monitoring across like a ton of all the major ones, but also I think there's a couple additional ones in there. I know Pinterest is in there. You can expand it to a little bit more. And it also really helps you break down some Facebook posts or break down Facebook posts and figure out exactly where your traffic is coming from, why your traffic is coming or is coming to specific posts, and just really get into the weeds as far as social stuff goes. But
BuzzSumo will basically do everything but make you coffee in the morning. You can check and see who's linking to your website. It'll tell you how long your content should be. You kind of already know that, but it'll tell you should do you get more shares out of a how-to or like a 7 things you don't know. You can find out who's sharing your content on LinkedIn and on Twitter. You can auto follow those people. You can set it up, and it's way better than Google Alerts. If you guys are just relying on Google Alerts to give you a heads up whenever your brand gets mentioned or whenever your name gets mentioned, you're missing out on potentially a lot of media mentions. BuzzSumo is one of the best at picking up those alerts and sending them to you on a regular basis. And it doesn't do quite as well as the like $15,000, $20,000 PR monitoring services. But obviously that's a much higher price point. This is the next best thing though. And BuzzSumo has all kinds of different plans. I want to say it's like a couple $100 a month. Mm-hmm. You might even be able to get in on a $99 plan, but it's totally worth checking out. Yeah, it does all kinds of stuff, and you can filter it by date. There are all kinds of parameters that you can set to find whatever kind of information you're looking for. And it's great for targeting influencers in your industry.
Yeah, so I'm not, I mostly focus on SEO. I don't really focus on social too much. Carrie is like incredible at social media, which should be pretty obvious by how successful our own socials are. But like, for the most part, I actually, and this is what amazes me about BuzzSumo, honestly, is like for our social team here at TCF, like they love BuzzSumo. I don't do anything with social usually. I stick in the realm of SEO. I love BuzzSumo. And the reason why I love it is if you just look here, right, at, I know we were using weighted blankets as a keyword previously when we were talking about examples. So I just threw that in before and then a quick search. And this is literally like, if you just go to buzzsumo.com and you get a search bar, it's just typing this in, right? That's all this is. And what this immediately does is it brings up in the past year, what are the most shared articles that it's picking up for that particular keyword. And we can break it down. So we can just do the past 6 months, right? And we can see what's coming up there. We can also break it down by the content type. So, maybe we want to exclude videos here, right? We want to exclude infographics because that's not in your ballpark. We can just apply those filters, go back, right? And now they're filtered out. So now we can just see specifically what topics are hitting for that specific keyword. And this is helpful for like a bunch of reasons. You should always do when we talk about keyword research and keyword strategy, we're not just talking about like literally just going there, searching through spreadsheets. We're also talking about like actually going on the internet and just seeing what other people are writing and getting a feel for like what is successful in this particular area, right? Because obviously like for us as a business that we write a lot of SEO content, the same tone, the same titles, the same types of articles are going to be successful in some fields. They're not going to be successful in others. So for example, we have clients that are very B2B focused. And because of that, obviously the tone's going to be different, but the very topics and like the way the titles are formatted are going to be different. And that's going to have a huge impact on how well they do. Whereas we have other clients that are targeted more towards customers and maybe towards a younger audience. And so the articles and the titles there are going to be dramatically different. And this seems like it's one of those things that should be, obvious from the outset, like, of course, right? Something that's targeting, your classic like 18 to 30 demographic is going to be dramatically different than someone that's targeting older adults or something that's targeting, just people that are, say, system administrators versus targeting people that are just looking to buy a weighted blanket. But where this also comes in is there's sometimes trends that like, without looking at data like this, you just will never be able to pick up on because it just won't be super obvious to you. So like when we throw in weighted blanket here, we can kind of figure out some things that maybe wouldn't have been super obvious if you were just sitting down and thinking, okay, cool, what do I write here? So just
So
talking
for
about like,
example, the just to jump in, the
Mhm.
how weighted blankets may help with sleep issues. So that tells you that if you're targeting weighted blankets as a keyword, that maybe you should also have a post talking about sleep issues. Or
Mhm.
maybe that should be an entire content category where you attack it with different posts
Mhm.
related to sleep issues. Anxiety, I'm seeing anxiety here, right? So that tells you the types of problems that people are looking to solve. And some of these people have found weighted blankets to be the solution to that problem. Now you know that you need to jump in on that conversation and start aggressively targeting those types of keywords. And it's a good way to make sure that you're really targeting everything that's relevant with your keyword and content strategy. As you're going through this, think of it from a competitive standpoint as well. So 11 weighted blankets, what was that? There was 11 weighted blankets that won't weigh down your wallet. Well, if you're going to target that type of content, you should at least have 15. And so when people are finding that in the search engine results pages, I'm sure that you guys have experienced this from the search end of things, from the searcher's perspective. If you see like 11 reasons why and 15 reasons why, uh, I always personally click on the 15 because who knows what I might be missing in the other article. And so competitive analysis is something that you should always have in the back of your mind. And if you see an 11, just make a note in your spreadsheet that it should be, at least 15.
Yeah, one of the things that I feel like it's really important to highlight is that with SEO, um, it's really really easy to get caught up in the technical side of things. And the thing is for the most part, if you're in a WordPress installation, you're using the appropriate plugins. We're going to get into this in a later lesson too. But if you're doing all that kind of stuff correctly, then like when it actually comes down to just sitting there and like and doing the other part of it, it really just comes down to almost outsmarting and outworking in a certain to a certain extent your competitors, right? Because like when you're talking about SEO, you're essentially just comparing a bunch of posts, and you're saying, or what Google is trying to do at its core, when you strip away like all the math from the situation and everything else, what it's really just trying to do is deliver the best content and the most targeted content to people that are searching for that content. And that's how it always has to be in the back of your mind. And so when you're looking at this kind of stuff and you're seeing certain trends pop up, that should be like the gears in your head should be spinning that, okay, cool. So like this is where things are trending. So this is what I have to get ahead of. And one of the things I quickly click to, even though I click back here, is you can even filter down to past month. And this is like something that is like super, super good, because one of the things you can tell then is if you're just jumping down from past year, like if you start there, you go to 6 months, then month, and then even down to week, you can get a good feeling for like what is trending now, what is coming up now, right? What is actually like making waves at this present moment that you can jump on, and that you can base your SEO strategy around. Because one of the things too that I feel like it's super important to get into when you're talking about SEO strategy is to making sure that you're trying to not just get ahead of trends, but jump on keywords that are just getting movement or that you think might get a little bit more movement in the future, because there is always an advantage of getting ahead of things versus, you know, say you're looking at articles from 2 years ago and you're saying, okay, this is what people were talking about 2 years ago. I'll jump on this. But then you're going to be at a disadvantage because you're essentially 2 years in the hole when it comes to the amount of traffic, backlinks, everything else that's on there. So if you can jump on a keyword that is like pretty new, and then people haven't necessarily jumped on, but there is a lot of movement on as far as search traffic goes, then like you're going to have such an advantage.
And,
Which is,
and another thing to look at when you are in this portion of BuzzSumo is who is writing about the subject. And it's got their social media information right there, So go follow them on Twitter, like them on Facebook, add them to lists, and if you can find their email address and it's a relevant an article that's relevant to your product or service, don't be shy about sending them an email. And we'll talk about this later on in the training, not this training session, but toward the end. And you can just ask them, hey, maybe update your article. I see that it's missing this one thing. I happen to be an expert in that. Here's my quote. I think it'd go great right at the end of paragraph 4, backlink to my website. And that's going to help you with your SEO. That's also going to help you with your networking. And so as you start developing these relationships, and that's actual relationship building as you're sending these emails and asking them for a favor, and then they do that favor for you. I think it was Thomas Jefferson who said that one of his favorite ways to make friends is to get the person to do a favor for you, because then they're already in that mindset. And if somebody will link to you once, they'll probably link to you again. And building and maintaining those relationships is a really great way to help build your SEO. If the blogger or journalist has written about the subject in the past, chances are they will in the future too. You want to make sure that you're considered and are in the conversation as much as possible. So take advantage of the information that BuzzSumo really just puts right in front of your face, and make sure that you're following all the people who are talking about this subject, and make sure that they know who you are. And it will pay off in backlinks and just coverage of your company and your products and services moving forward.
Yeah, it's we're I forget what lesson it is. I think it's the 6th lesson that we're going to be talking about a lot of that stuff in. But one of the things about SEO is, like, none of these things exist in a vacuum. None of the subjects that we're talking about exist in a vacuum, but like when it comes to like content marketing in general, it's not just about like the on-page SEO. It's not just about the back end. It's not just about link building. All these things kind of come together, and that's how you do well. So you have to combine basically everything together, but when you do, you're going to have a lot of success. But yeah, so like going back to BuzzSumo, once you kind of do your research and you look through here and you figure out like, okay, cool, this is what's successful, this is what's not successful. The next step is to try and crystallize all that information. So you know what keywords you want to include. You know the kind of content the general kind of content that you want to include over the next couple months. And you know generally the form of that content, right? And like what goals you have to have for that content. So like Carrie was saying, if you see, here's the 11 best tips for something, you want to write there are 15 best tips. If you look on a page where, this says people say these weighted blankets are the best way to help your anxiety, right? You look at that page, you decide, okay, cool. You know what? We're going to do it better, right? So you kind of have your goals in mind. Your next step is actually to get a little bit organized. And that's where this comes in. So this right here is an editorial calendar template, right? And this is something that basically every agency uses internally. It's also something that it's basically something that almost like everybody that has a blog on their website uses, or should be using at least. Because when you're talking about all that like information, right, you need to put it down somewhere. Same as the keyword research, right? You can't just like throw it somewhere and like, okay, cool, whatever. I'll when I have to grab some keywords, I'll go to this I'll go to this random file. Everything should be organized because that's the best way to actually do work in the future. But for this, there's a couple other reasons why. So like, first off, obviously not like all these are just random things. These aren't actually like real content, or this isn't real content. These isn't real keywords. Whoops. But just ignore the content. Focus on exactly like what it's filling in. So how we would fill this in, for example, is we come up with the titles, we come up with the keywords, we throw them in here, and it just keeps everything organized. And then we set a goal for the word count, right? So like theoretically with this example, when we looked for the keywords, things you need to do, right? We set like a goal for this. We looked and we did some research. We found out, okay, cool. So all our competitors in this space are writing blog posts that are 1,500, 1,800, 2,000 words long. We want to do more. So we're going to do 2,500 words at a minimum. We know that. So we mark that in here, right? So then we have the keyword, we have the title, we have everything set there. The next thing that we do, we can throw some notes in, like what do we need to target? Is there a specific time of year we want this to be published? All that kind of stuff we can throw in.
You can also include some websites or resources that you might have found in the keyword research process that you want to link to. You can also make notes about what internal pages you want to link to. Certainly secondary keywords are important because you're not just focusing on your primary keyword. If you're writing 2,500 words of content, you're going to have different sections, and we'll get into formatting, I believe, in the next training session. But you want to be targeting secondary keywords and related subjects because chances are you don't just rank for one keyword when you write a long blog post. We have some blog posts that rank for thousands of keywords. And so there's a real opportunity there to strategically target secondary keywords that are related to the primary, and you want to make sure that that's all accounted for in your editorial calendar as well.
Yeah, one of the things that I just added in is typically what we do. Carrie mentioned like secondary keywords there. When there's other keywords that we want to target in a post, right? Because typically when we're writing a blog post, we'll have our main anchor keyword that is like the genesis that everything else comes from. So that's that's where the topic comes from. That's what we started with first. But then we'll have the other secondary keywords that we found, and typically, we'll get into this a little bit later, but secondary keywords will either be just, they'll just be topics that we want to include in this blog post that we feel are related. Alternatively, they might be subjects that we found on other blogs or a blog posts elsewhere on other pages that we think, okay, cool. So they're targeting these keywords. So that gives us a hint that maybe we should be targeting them too, even though it's not necessarily our main keyword. It's still related to this topic. So we want to throw that in as well. And typically what we do is just we'll make the main keyword bold, and then everything else after will just be included under the keyword column, and we'll just toss it in. But then with the editorial calendar, there's a very practical. There's two very practical reasons to use this. One of the reasons why we consistently get business to write content for people, sometimes they even have the time. Right? Sometimes people even have the time to write the content. They just won't do it because it's hard when you have a bunch of other stuff that you're juggling. Even if you can figure out like, okay, I can set aside these hours then to write the content, it's hard to actually sit down and write it. And so if you use this and you say, okay, we're going to make the due date, right? We're going to set the due date for this content to be, April 30th. Of this year, and we throw that in there, that actually sets something that is concrete, that we know we want this content to be due on this date, right? And you can continue just doing this down the line, and you would be surprised just setting a due date for your content for yourself internally, what that actually does to you, especially if you don't just do it here, but if you're using if you use Google Calendars or whatever you happen to be using as your general calendar and reminder service, right? If you set it so that date is in your Google Calendar and you set reminders to come, a day before, a week before, whatever, and you maybe set, a week before it's due, you set another one. Have you worked on this yet? Sort of thing. You'll be surprised at how much more you can get done and how much more progress you can actually make on your blog post, because it's, for us, this is our job. It's what we do. For you, it's another thing that you have to throw on, or you have to assign to someone else in your business. And, that's another reason why this is super useful for, is chances are this isn't going to be a solo project. You're going to have other people doing this with you. So, if you have someone else at your company, a marketing person, whoever, who is taking care of this stuff, it can be really helpful to have them tag, you can throw another comment or another column in here, or alternatively, you can throw out notes at okay, this is Carrie writes this post, Chris writes this post, et cetera, down on the line.
Another pro tip that I found back when I was a freelance writer, back in ye olden days, is start with an outline. You don't have to write the whole post. Don't even sit down thinking you're going to write the whole post, because you shouldn't just sit down and write a whole post. What you should sit down and do is write an outline. That's going to take you a half hour, 45 minutes max. And in that outline, you have your title. Well, all right, now the intro is going to be probably what, 50, 100 words? Okay. Here are the keywords that I'm going to mention, and maybe just some bullet points of some points that I want to include or some sources that I want to link to. Well, now what's my first section going to be? Okay, and how long should that first section be? Probably at least 500 words, because that's a pretty competitive keyword that I'm targeting. So, you know, maybe that section might even stretch to 800. And then what's the next section? And you just keep kind of following that process until you reach your conclusion and the call to action. And, you know, you want to incorporate calls to action throughout your post. And another strategy that you can use to generate email subscribers to, you know, help you monetize your traffic moving forward is to identify places in your content where you can offer some sort of downloadable asset that your target audience might need. So for example, TCF's website ranks #1 for keyword research template. Now, that's not a high converting post for us in terms of people who become clients, but that is a very high converting post for our email subscription list, because we offer them exactly what they're looking for, and they can download it in exchange for signing up for our email list. So as you're writing your content, think to yourself, now what's something that we can offer here that is going to be of use or value to our target audience that we can offer in exchange for, you know, them signing up for our email list. And that will help you squeeze the most ROI out of your content, right? So you can include those types of things in your outline. And then once that's set, you would be amazed at how fast you can write content, because you already know where you're going to go. You don't have to like sit and think, well, like, what's my transition going to be here? It's much easier to outline long form content and just kind of bullet it out, the ideas, and then you can easily make changes to the flow. So if after you bullet it out, you realize, you know, this section really should go up toward the top, but right now I have it toward the bottom. It is so much easier to make that edit in the outline phase than after you've already written the content, because then you need to like rewrite entire chunks. So in the effort of like writing the most content in the most efficient way that's going to ensure that you are strategically targeting the right kinds of keywords, the outline process is where it's at. And it's just going to make everything a lot easier for you. So especially with long form content, make sure that you outline it first. You're going to be doing yourself a huge favor.
Yeah, actually, so just, I mean, I imagine everyone on the call has had to write a paper at some time in their life. And what is the most intimidating thing is this, right? Nothing. When you just start off with nothing, it's like, this is the hardest. This is when it takes the longest to get started. Your first word takes longer than anything else. Whereas this is just like, this is what a perspective outline would look like, right? So like really simple. What is easier, just to get some of the stuff off the screen, what is easier like to look at when you're like, none of this stuff takes a lot of time, right? This isn't hard to map out, because if you're just starting a blog post, all you really have to do is just sit here and say, okay, cool. So like, just sketching out an intro. I know what the title is going to be for this post. I know what the keyword is. All right, what other topics do I want to cover? All right, you just make them H2 headers, right? Because that's what it's going to look like in your blog post. So you just drop that there. Okay, do I want to include any specific keywords under these? Cool, you can just drop those in. Okay, you need to have a call to action at the end, so you can throw that there. And you just slowly build it out. And you'll be surprised at how fast it goes when you use this kind of method. Now, we'll talk about this a little bit later when we talk about formatting of blog posts. But yeah, Carrie's absolutely right. Outlining is is the easiest way to jump in and actually get started on this kind of stuff. But yeah, once you have everything organized, it's important when you're writing all this content, or in the process of organizing, I should say, not necessarily when you have everything organized, but it's important to keep in mind how your actual website is organized, right? And I have this graph here that I've pulled up from this website. Ignore any of the text. I'm more interested in just the organization of everything. And a lot of people think of organization on their website as more of a back end thing, but it's really important from an internal linking point of view, from simply like just people browsing around your website. So remember when at the beginning of this lesson, or early on in this lesson, when I mentioned, like, if you look on our website, right, and you click on any one of our blog posts and you're scrolling through to any of the categories that are not the categories, but a lot of the links in this blog post, it's going to link to other blog posts on our website. So like, here's our basic SEO terms. Here's basic terminology for SEO. You can learn more from our SEO basics guide, right? Then you click on this and it's our SEO basics guide on our website. And then if you go through this is going to go to more keyword things. So like this jumps to this, right? And one of the first links is to keyword research. And this goes to a Google spreadsheet, right? And this is another page for doing keyword research. And we break down exactly how to use that. And the whole idea here, right, is our content is organized in such a way that when someone clicks on one of these pages, they essentially can keep going down this funnel of useful information. Because as much as our goal is that we want you to click on one of these articles, we want you to immediately convert and either sign up for our newsletter, buy something, or go down and say, hey, write me content, or do social media for me, or whatever it happens to be. Well, that's the end goal. What we actually also want to do is provide a useful resource for people. When you're talking about writing 10 times better content, it's not just like 10 times longer, 10 times more keywords. It's 10 times more value. And so our goal when someone visits our website is to provide that value to them. And that's not just based on one blog post. It's based on the entire setup of our website. And so how we try and set things up is that when you land on our website, you land on, say, something about keyword research or something about the cost of social media, you stay in this funnel. You stay in this silo of, all right, this is all, going back to this graph, you stay and like, okay, cool. So like, I'm going to work my way through all these posts about keyword research. And eventually, that's going to keep me in this category that I know I'm interested in. And maybe, there will be links to other sites that have stuff that we also feel is interested for one reason or another. But they're essentially going to keep linking up through everything, right? And eventually they're going to get to these big mega posts that we have on our website. So these are like, going back here, like a lot of content links back to this. What is a keyword? An SEO basics guide, because this is like a very long, well-researched post that we have on our website that breaks things down in, excruciating detail for, about keywords and just SEO basics in general. So we funnel people to here. And then at this post at the end, we link to our services page. And on our services page, we talk about, okay, cool. Are you looking for SEO services specifically for content writing? Then cool. Like, or do you want us to do an SEO audit or anything like that? And everything essentially filters down the line, and it's all very organized. And this does two things, right? From a user performance, or a user experience rather, and like just from that perspective and nothing else, that makes it really easy for someone to navigate our website and to get the content that they actually want to get to, right? That's the goal. We want to get them. We're trying to behave as Google, essentially. We don't just want people to just go to our website and here's traffic. We want to get people to the most useful spots for what we think they want to go to our website. And that just doesn't mean getting them to the place where we feel like they're going to convert the most. And also, we want to get them to the places where we feel like they're going to get the most value out of our website, because when someone goes to our website and they say, okay, cool, check this. This is actually really useful. These people know what they're talking about. Those are the people that are likely going to take that next step and say, well, I want to use this company. They know what they're talking about. And from a practical reason, or a practical perspective, I can't tell you how many clients, when they actually get to that perspective, and I'm sitting down and, we're planning out their content because they're a client of ours. And I just say, okay, cool. Like, why exactly, why did you go with us? And they'll say, well, we found your website through Google and we browsed through it and like we saw all the super useful information. So we were like, of course, who else are we going to go with? And that's, you're not going to be necessarily rating content in like the SEO industry, but no matter what you're rating content for, that same behavior pattern can be relevant for you.
To that effect, I don't want you guys to be too afraid of giving away the farm in terms of strategy or in terms of providing lots of information about your industry or your services or your products or your industry. Provide that valuable, informative content because it's going to establish you as an expert in the industry. It's going to make people feel more comfortable with your company. And it's going to make them much more likely to make a purchase. So demonstrate your expertise. Demonstrate what makes you different. Make sure that you are constantly reinforcing your value proposition and talking about, what you can do for the reader, what you can do for them. And a quick way that I was able to generate a lot of backlinks and a lot of easy, high converting search rankings is because TCF is one of the very, very few agencies that publishes their rates. And most agencies, when calling for PR or social media services, before they'll even give you a quote, you have to sit on at least 2 calls. That's going to be 2 hours of your time. They're going to, beat your ear with all kinds of case studies, and they're going to be very interested in your company. And it takes a lot of time. I don't have that kind of time. I assume that a lot of other people don't as well. And so one of the first things that I did was I published our rates. I did a ton of research. I sat on those calls. I, found out how much other agencies charge. And I asked around to entrepreneurs and businesses that had, hired different agencies. And I did a lot of research. But as a result, that post, how much does social media marketing cost, but also how much does web content writing cost? At some point, we're going to have a how much does PR cost, but that's much more difficult to research. It's more than 2 calls to get that kind of price quote. But if you are in the professional services industry, as long as you're not prohibited by regulations or legal restrictions, consider just publishing your rates and talking about how they relate to others in the industry. Certainly, TCF is not the cheapest agency. You can go to all kinds of other places and find, an agency that will do what we do for cheaper or claim to, right? But we still don't have trouble getting clients at our price point. And it's because we have established our value proposition. They want to go with us. And you can do the same. So even if your prices are on the higher end, that's fine. Don't be afraid of publishing them and consider that as your strategy. Because if you're the only one in your industry doing so, you're going to be the only one ranking for that keyword, and that is a high conversion keyword. The cost of anything, especially like professional services, where they're not usually readily available, is a really juicy keyword to target. So definitely consider that as well.
Yeah, and we're coming up on the end. There's one more thing that I want to talk about real quick. I didn't mention this, and I just want to go back to it real quick before we get to questions real quick. So if I go to the editorial calendar, one of the things that I like to use this is specifically when you're talking about keywords that you're targeting. I know we briefly talked about what is an ideal keyword to target. What I think is really important, going back to the last lesson, when you're looking at actually like, this is the content I want to target for the next 6 months, or, you know, however long you're looking down the line at. One of the things I think is super helpful is to say to yourself, all right, how realistic is it for us to rank for these particular keywords? And it's of my belief that you should go for those easy wins first, but within reason. What an easy win is and what a difficult keyword to rank for is going to be difficult for everyone. So there's people who are listening to this, who are watching this. You might be just starting off brand new, fresh. You know, your website hasn't existed for more than a week or two. In that case, then yeah, you want to target those easy wins pretty consistently. If you were a bigger website though, and you have some established page for your site that makes you have some authority in an industry. We're going to be talking about specific Google authority, domain authority, that kind of stuff. We're going to talk about that in a later lesson. But if you have some topic authority, right? Even ignoring what Google says, right? If you've written already a bunch of blog posts about a certain topic, and maybe you're not really ranking for much, but like you have your foot in the door, so to speak, then I think it's worth every month, or every 10 blog posts or every 5 blog posts, depending on how often you're writing them, to kind of shoot for a topic that might be a little bit more difficult to rank for, because I think it is worth just trying to go after those, provided it's realistic, right? Like, if you are in the cloud computing space, like, don't go after the keyword like cloud computing. But if there's something really specific, like, say like, liquid cooled data centers as a keyword or something, and that in your specific focus of the industry, and you decide that's a really difficult keyword to rank for, but I feel like because of where our company focuses on, and the amount of content that we've created in the past, I feel like this is one that we maybe should take a risk at. And I feel like it's worth taking those shots every now and then, but like, don't make it a focus, right? You should always go for the easy wins first, but don't get in a habit of just focusing on those lower volume keywords or the ones that are really like low hanging fruit all the time. You should target those the majority of the time, but I think it's a great idea every now and then to target those keywords that are a little bit more difficult to go after. If nothing else, because keywords are not like, keywords are never a thing where it's like, okay, cool, I'm throwing my blog post out there. If it's not successful in a month, oh well, we're throwing it in the trash. When you're writing a blog post, it's there for a long time. That's the benefit of organic content. So like, that blog post is going to be relevant 6 months, a year down the future. So if you target that really difficult blog post and you keep going back to it, or keyword, I'm sorry, and you keep going back to that blog post in the future and just beefing it up, building links to it over time, there's a chance that you could rank for it and you could surprise yourself. Like, don't make that your entire strategy, but like, go for it.
Right. And you can also rank for some great secondary keywords that way too.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll talk about how to revamp content that maybe isn't doing super hot, but does rank for some keywords. And we can show you how to kind of supercharge those posts to get them to rank for the keywords, rank higher at least. And consistently, we've seen great results with that. So I think now it's a great time to open the floor to questions. Do you guys have any questions for me and Chris?
All right, I see one. Let's see. Just bringing this up on my second screen here. Hi, guys. I know that long-form blog posts are great for SEO, but when should we be writing shorter blog posts? Or rather, what is the SEO-related value of those shorter posts? All right, cool. Carrie,
I can take that one. Cool. Sure. So let me pull open that question so I can see it fully. Okay, so I'll tackle it a piece at a time. Shorter posts, you really shouldn't write them with SEO in mind. Shorter posts are great for, let's say you got some media coverage, or let's say you've got some company news And, you know, you can write a press release about that, but really no journalists are going to cover it. But you want to have that content on your site so that maybe when people ask questions about, you know, your new formula or whatnot, you can link them to that post and it answers their questions and keeps you from having to, you know, type the same email over and over and over again. Short posts are great for that. The SEO value of them, again, you're not going to see much unless it's just a zero competition kind of keyword. So as you're building out your SEO strategy, I really wouldn't incorporate those at all with any kind of SEO goal in mind.
Yeah, and I'll just add on there that I was actually looking for it. There was a fantastic study. I can't remember if it was done by SEMrush, or if it was done by somebody else, or if it was done by Search Engine Land. But they did an analysis of what content ranks number one in its length over like a ton of keywords. That's why I think it was SEMrush, because it was either, maybe it was Moz. It's one of them. But they basically showed that like 2,000 plus tends to be the sweet spot. There are posts that rank under that for keywords, right? There are some posts out there that people do rank for, but the thing is, and this is how like Carrie and I kind of look at the situation, is that if someone is writing, say someone writes a blog post, right, and they write like that 500 to 1,000 word blog post for a keyword, well then we're gonna come along. Carrie and I are gonna come along. We're gonna be salivating.
Oh my God, Chris and I are going to be slapping each other high fives, just digital high fives. Just, oh man, we got this. Because I only have to write 1,500 words, but just to cover my bases, I'm still gonna do the 2,000. So if you write those shorter posts and they do rank, and those keywords are high converting, trust that at some point a Chris and a Carrie are gonna come along and just usurp that position.
Yeah, no problem. So that question is actually, I would say, the number one question that we get from our clients, without fail. When we sit down, typically we'll do an analysis of their content and like keywords and all that kind of stuff, and then we sit down and we make a recommendation to them for like how much content they should be writing within their budget and all this other kind of stuff, right? And the first question that they come to us and they're like, well, do we have to write 2,000 words? And we'll like, yes.
Yeah, because how many people are going to read? You know, because a lot of the pushback we get is that, you know, the time on site is only a couple minutes, that this is like a 10, 15-minute read. So we know that people aren't even reading all of the content. What's the point of it? And the point of it is, like, in order to get the readers to even get that far down the page, and some of them are reading all of it, right? Some people are just kind of bouncing off after 10 seconds. So normalize, if somebody's really interested in the subject and that person is absolutely your target audience, they are going to read all of it, first of all. And then second of all, it's going to require that amount of content to rank number one and then stay there. And if there were any kind of cheats, if there were any shortcuts, I mean, there are cheats and shortcuts, and Chris and I are showing you all of them. But unfortunately with SEO, the truth of the matter is it's a lot of work, and it requires a lot of focus. And if you miss any one aspect of SEO, so SEO in my mind is composed of the content itself and the keyword targeting, the back end of your website, but also the backlinks that you're driving, and also the social sharing signals. All of these things the search crawlers look for, and all of these things you can control. But if you are missing one of those 5 key aspects of solid SEO strategy, you're never going to do as well as you otherwise would. Like, there are a lot of great tools that make this process easier than ever. 5 years ago, a lot of this stuff didn't exist, and we would have to go through and listen, I'm not going to talk to you about uphill in the snow both ways, but trust that it was a lot worse than it is now. And these tools make things so much easier than they used to be. and they're really accessible. All of the tools that we're showing you, from BuzzSumo to SEMrush, there are guide tutorials online that will really show you how to use all of these products. It's also important that you become an expert at Google Analytics, because tracking all of this is very important too. So if there were a way to get 500-word content to rank, I would be very excited about it, because we would be able to rank for more keywords, we'd be able to produce more content. But you have to go about things the right way, and there's a lot to it. The editorial calendar template here has been uploaded to the handouts. That is a great tool and will help keep you on track. SEMrush is not going to let you go too far off course. You know, so once you know what to look for, and once you understand the process, ranking for keywords actually becomes really, really easy. But it is very important that you follow all of the process, and it is quite time consuming at times, but it pays off in dividends. SEO has the highest ROI. We keep talking about that. I chase ROI, not just for myself, but for my clients, and I'm sure that you guys are here trying to chase ROI too. And SEO is the best way to generate a lot of sales and leads. Okay, it doesn't look like there are any other questions. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to email me. You've got my email. Otherwise, we'll wrap this lesson. Sorry we went a little bit over, but content strategy is very important, and I think it was worth the extra few minutes. We'll look forward to seeing you at the next lesson plan. Chris, what is that one?
I believe the next one is...
Ooh, it's writing blog posts. I just looked it up. It's writing
you
blog
beat me
posts,
to it.
which is fun. I'm excited about that one, and it's not as difficult as it sounds, and we're going to show you how to make it easy.
Cool. All right, guys, we'll see you next time. And until then, good luck in your SEO efforts.